This tutorial here is to fit a reverse parking camera to the W204 C-Class Mercedes. This is specifically for the facelift model with the command system. If you have the Audio 20 version, then I'm afraid this tutorial will not work for you, as you need an additional video converter. So the reason behind this tutorial is because I contacted Mercedes and Command themselves, and they were quoting me £400 for the kit alone. So it's easy to say that including any fitting that they would have charged me, it would have been well over £500, and I think that's just far too much money. So I thought I could do it myself for a fraction of the price. So here is everything we need to get everything up and running. So first of all, a trim removal set, quite self-explanatory, some Tessa tape, some electrical tape, the camera itself, which we'll go into a bit more detail in a minute, I think this is pronounced right, a FACRA to RCA adapter. Now the reason for that is that the actual camera itself, its video output is via an RCA cable, which the head unit doesn't recognise. So we need this adapter here to connect the camera and the head unit up together. This here is an adder circuit fuse adapter. The camera itself needs a 12-volt supply. Now instead of splicing any power cables up in the car, I can use this, connect it to the fuse box and get a constant 12-volt supply to the camera. It just seems like a much cleaner approach. Here we also have some sleeve tubes just in case I do need to splice any cables, but hopefully I won't need this. And here's your basic tool set. So here are the contents of the camera. Starting off with the camera itself, pretty basic standard reversing camera, as you can see. This here is the settings button. This will actually allow you to shift the image left and right and adjust the viewing angle of the camera if needs be. This here is basically what the camera and everything connects up to. So you have a power lead, the RCA out, and also where the settings button also connects into. So the power adapter here plugs into there, which also has on the other end a 12-volt power cable and an earth cable. So the 12-volt cable will go into the back of this fuse adapter as previously mentioned, and then I just ground it somewhere to the bodywork at the back of the car. This video extension cable then plugs into here, and the other end will then go into the back of the FACRA cable here. This end here will then go into the back of the head unit. Just to add, I will put a link to all the items that I have purchased in the description. The first thing we need to do is enable the reversing camera on the head unit. Now the way to do this is that you actually have to go into a hidden menu called engineering mode to enable the camera. So this is what we're going to do first of all. You need to check that you actually have the correct firmware on your head unit, and the easiest way to check this is by going to the system menu at the top right hand corner here shown, and if you see an analog clock, that means your firmware is at least up to date where you can enable the rear view camera. As you can see here, it's fine, but if you've got, I think it was some sort of tool like a wrench, that means your firmware is out of date, and I'm afraid you will have to contact Mercedes to get a firmware update. So if you have got the right firmware, this is how you get into engineering mode. So what you need to do is that you need to press the end call button, what we call the hash button, and number 1 together. It's quite difficult for me to do that as I'm holding the camera. So I'll stop the video, hold those buttons down, and then show you the screen. So here we are in engineering mode. Now what you need to do is go down to option 7, hardware settings, option 7 again, head unit parameter. Now option 5 here, video auxiliary, I've put that to on. I'm not too sure if you do need it or not, but I enabled it just to be on the safe side. Keep scrolling down to option 21, rear view camera. Now if you go into it, there's a few options here. To be honest with you, I don't know what they mean. All I know is SRVC was the correct mode for me. So you enable that, and then you just exit out all the way back down to engineering mode page 1, and then you go down to end. Now this took some time to register on the system. It seems like it's going to take a few hours, so my recommendation is actually just to enable it the day before you're going to install the camera. I've done that last night, and it seemed by this morning it was registered. One other thing now is that if you go across to settings, the way to tell that it's actually also being enabled without having to go back into engineering mode is that you'll see an extra option here called rear view camera. Now by default for me, it says activation by reverse gear. This was already enabled by default. It might be different for you, so you might want to check that just to be on the safe side. But if you see that option now, that means you know your rear view camera has been enabled. Okay, so the next step is to remove the inner boot lining. So there's a bunch of Torx screws that you need to remove, all T20s. So there's 4 screws here that will need to be removed. And then using a trim removal tool, you can just pop out the connectors like so. So yeah, a few more around the back here, then it should all just pull out. To remove the rest of the lining, I actually have to get this bit off here. It's just a couple of the connectors from the looks of it that can just easily be unclipped. 2 from what I can see. I can't see anything underneath, so I think it's just these 2, and then it should just slide off. Okay, so the boot line is finally off. This holder here, which holds the safety reflector, to get that off, there's just a couple of clips here. So once you unclip it, it just pulls off and the whole of the boot liner comes off. Quite simple. So here's the boot liner removed. Looking at the back of the car, there's already cables running down the driver's side. So I'm thinking, as there's no cables on the passenger side, it would probably be easier to run it through that way. So that's what I'm going to do. Next step is to remove the actual trim itself from the front. The hardest bit here is actually trying to remove the fans. Inside each side here, there is a clip that you need to get to actually pull in, and then you can take this off. The first step though is to actually unclip this bit here. So all I did was just use a bit of the trim removal kit, and it was quite easy. You just basically pop it in, slide it in up there, and just pop it, and you'll hear a pop. So there are actually 3 clips there, 2 here, and then you've got 1 right in the center of the fan here. So the best thing really is to try and pop them open first, and then move to the centerpiece here. So the hardest bit so far is actually trying to unclip the center vents. Part that I needed, I don't actually have. I've got all that as a trim removal set, and I haven't actually got the bit I need to remove the center vents. So I actually fashioned one out of a wire hanger. So what there's an actual clip either side of the vents which basically need to be pulled in. Now the easiest way to show it is actually to show you from the other side of what needs to be done. So you come in via the center of the vent, pull this in, and then turn it around. So you see where that clip is, like so. It hooks into there, then it unclips, and then all you need to do is just give it a pull with the rest of the trim and it pops out. And it's just the same on the other side there. There is a sort of video on YouTube, which I'll actually send a link to, how to remove it. There is a tool out there which you can get. So the next part is to remove these T20 Torx, one either side. You unscrew them, and then that should gain access to the main unit here. So here is the back of the head unit. Here is where I had an existing connector. It's like a dual connector with an extra cable coming out the side of it, which leads to this green one here. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I didn't want to remove it. So instead of adding the new Facro connector, which is here, I removed the black plastic bit on the side, which gave me access to actually just pull the cable out. And I managed to insert it into here, which was quite solid. So now the Facro cable is connected to the RCA cable. So this is the passenger side. I've removed this lining off so I could get the cable running all the way down, and hopefully down here and push it around the back. I thought it was easier, as it's best to obviously work from the top down instead of trying to push the cable up and through. I think it would just be a lot harder, as it's quite tightly packed behind there. So working from top down seems to be the best option, and then I can just wire it all the way around the side of the car. So the cable is now running all the way through to the back, all the way through along the side, around the other way, all along here, along to the back of the seats, along here, and it's now popping out of there. as you can see, the cable is long enough, so it shouldn't be a problem to now run it all the way up here up to here where the camera's going to be. So the next step is to remove this bit of trim here, and the way to do it is to remove there's two torque screws, two T20 torque screws, which have been removed here, but on the inside and the other side there are, there you go, there's one there, silver one there, and that one there. Those two screws need to be removed as well. So here's what I've done. I've actually fed the camera through one of the existing holes where the torque screw was next to the lights, as you can see. I'm not worried about this all falling off because it's actually quite solid. There's a couple of connectors as well on the other side, which makes it all hold in place. So having one less torque screw, I'm not really too bothered about. So let me show you the other side. So it comes all the way through here, running all the way down here. It goes then into the power lead where the RCA cable comes through, and this is where the power to the camera is actually fed from. So it's going all the way around here, connected to the fuse box. So this is in connector spot 71, which I believe is the cigarette lighter. So it has two 15-amp fuses to it, and then this is where the actual power cable is now connected. And if you look underneath, you can see where it is earthed, and this is basically just earthed to the rear view light. So it all looks pretty messy at the moment, but there's no point tidying it all up until I know it works. So yeah, let's fire up the car and see if it works. Okay, so here we go, moment of truth. Let's fire up. Any excuse to fire up, really. Okay, so let's put her into reverse. And there we go. So obviously the camera's not in the right position because I've still got the boot up and it's balancing on there, but as you can see there's a clear image coming out once I put the car in reverse. So I'll put it back into park. No reception. Neutral. Back into park. Still nothing. Into reverse. There we go. What I'm going to do, I'm going to obviously put everything back together and then actually take it out for a proper test. I need to get some essentials anyway, and as you may have seen, I've got hardly any fuel, so I need to get some fuel as well when I'm at it. So yeah, once I get to the supermarket, I'll test it in the car park. So here's the finished article. As you can see, it's sitting quite nicely. It feels quite solid. So yeah, don't see that falling off anytime soon. And here's what it looks like with the boot liner and everything put back together. So quite tidy, as you can see. All back to normal. One other thing, I ended up permanently wiring the settings switch here, just in case I need to make any future tweaks. It's easier instead of having to obviously take the lining apart again and actually gaining access to the wiring loom. So I thought just tape it up and just leave it sitting here. But yeah, quite nicely done. So yeah, about to get some shopping, so we'll see how it works in the car park. Okay, so I just got to the supermarket, about to test if the camera works, so here we go. Like a glove. So all in all, yeah, pretty happy with it. For the cost of about £50 in parts and I'd say about 5 hours of my time. I've saved a few £100 here. So would I recommend doing it yourself? 100%. Give it a go. Save yourself a ton of money. You don't know if you can do it until you try, so you learn by doing, as they say. So there you go. I hope this is of some use to you. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below and I'll try and get back to you. Cheers.